What if I told you that Disney's most beloved family movie started as a horror film that traumatized child actors and destroyed careers? The wholesome backyard adventure you remember was actually built on chaos, danger, and secrets that Disney desperately tried to bury. These 20 shocking revelations will change how you see this childhood classic forever. Number 20. The movie almost never got made. Disney executives hated the original pitch so much, they nearly canceled production 3 times. The concept seemed too bizarre, too risky, and frankly, too stupid to work. Internal memos called it the dumbest idea we've ever greenlit. Studio heads were convinced audiences would never buy into shrinking children, and early test screenings were disasters. Focus groups walked out, calling it ridiculous and impossible to follow. Only last-minute intervention from producer Penny Finkelman-Cox saved the project from the garbage bin. Disney had already spent millions on pre-production, making cancellation financially catastrophic. What started as the studio's most reluctant project became their biggest surprise hit. Number 19. The original script was pure nightmare fuel. Before Disney sanitized it into family entertainment, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was conceived by Stuart Gordon, the twisted mind behind cult horror films like Reanimator. Gordon's initial script was genuinely terrifying. The backyard wasn't a playground. It was a death trap. Children faced graphic violence from insects nearly drowned in horrifying detail, and one early draft actually featured a child character being eaten alive by a spider. Gordon envisioned the grass as a jungle of razor-sharp blades that could slice tiny bodies in half. Disney executives were horrified when they read the original treatment, demanding massive rewrites to remove the gore and psychological terror. But traces of Gordon's dark vision remained buried in the final film, hidden beneath the cheerful surface. Number 18. Child actors were hospitalized. During filming, the production was far more dangerous than Disney ever admitted. Multiple child actors required medical treatment during filming, with injuries ranging from allergic reactions to the fake grass to serious cuts from oversized props. Thomas Wilson Brown, who played Little Russ, spent 2 days in the hospital after inhaling toxic fumes from the giant foam sets. The massive Lego blocks weren't just props, they were heavy fiberglass structures that could easily crush a small child. Amy O'Neill suffered severe bruising when a mechanical bee malfunctioned during the flying sequence, throwing her against metal safety barriers. Disney's insurance company threatened to shut down production twice due to safety violations. Studio lawyers worked overtime to keep these incidents out of the press, fearing public backlash against using children in such hazardous conditions. Number 17. Rick Moranis wasn't Disney's first, second, or even third choice. Disney desperately wanted a major star to anchor their risky project, and Rick Moranis was nowhere near their initial list. The studio first approached Robin Williams, offering him an astronomical sum to play Wayne Szalinski. Williams turned it down, calling the script too weird for families. Next, Disney courted Steve Martin, who was riding high on comedy success. Martin's agent rejected the offer without even letting him read the script. The studio then tried to lure Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and even considered Eddie Murphy for a drastically rewritten version. Each rejection sent Disney into deeper panic mode. When they finally approached Moranis, he was their 7th choice, and negotiations were so desperate that Disney agreed to his unusual demands, including script approval and a percentage of merchandising profits that made him wealthy beyond the film's success. Number 16. The giant sets nearly killed multiple crew members. Those massive backyard sets that look so whimsical on screen were actually death traps for the people building them. The 30-foot grass blades weren't just tall, they were unstable fiberglass structures that could topple without warning. 3 construction workers were hospitalized when a section collapsed during assembly. The giant Cheerios bowl required specialized engineering because normal construction materials couldn't handle the weight of 16,000 gallons of liquid. 2 stuntmen nearly drowned when safety protocols failed during the serial rescue scene. The oversized Lego blocks were so heavy they cracked the studio floor, requiring emergency structural repairs mid-production. OSHA investigated the set multiple times, issuing violations that Disney quietly paid to avoid public scrutiny. Crew members later described the working conditions as insanely dangerous and like building a theme park with no safety regulations. Number 15. The ant puppet traumatized children. Nationwide. Auntie the ant wasn't just a beloved character. He became the source of widespread childhood trauma that Disney tried to cover up. The massive puppet was so realistic that it triggered genuine terror in young viewers during test screenings. Child psychologists warned Disney that Auntie's death scene was too intense for the target audience, causing children to have nightmares and develop phobias about insects. Despite these warnings, Disney kept the scene because focus groups of adults found it emotionally powerful. The studio received thousands of angry letters from parents whose children refused to play outside after seeing the film. Some theaters actually posted warnings about the ant sequences, and several international markets demanded cuts to Auntie's more frightening moments. The character that was supposed to teach children about friendship instead sent many to therapy, creating a generation of kids who associated Disney movies with genuine fear. Number 14. Dangerous chemical experiments poisoned the cast. The shrinking effects required experimental chemicals that hadn't been properly tested for human safety. The fog machines used to create the shrinking cloud contained industrial solvents that caused respiratory problems for several cast members. Marcia Strassman developed a persistent cough that lasted months after filming wrapped. The child actors complained of headaches and nausea after extended exposure to the chemical effects. Disney's on-set medical team documented numerous cases of skin irritation and breathing difficulties, but attributed them to normal production stress. It wasn't until years later that toxicology reports revealed the fog effects contained carcinogenic compounds. The studio quietly paid for ongoing medical monitoring of affected cast and crew members, with non-disclosure agreements preventing them from speaking publicly about their health issues. Number 13. The budget spiraled out of control due to constant disasters. What started as a modest $18 million production exploded into a financial nightmare that nearly bankrupted Disney's live-action division. The experimental nature of the effects meant constant failures and expensive do-overs. The giant sets had to be rebuilt multiple times when they collapsed or proved unusable. Weather delays in Mexico added millions in unexpected costs when the outdoor sets were destroyed by storms. The mechanical bee alone cost over $300,000 after multiple versions failed catastrophically during filming. Disney executives were pulling their hair out as the budget climbed toward $40 million, making it one of the most expensive family films ever attempted. Studio accountants later called it a masterclass in how not to manage production costs, and the financial stress contributed to several executive departures during post-production. Number 12. International censors demanded shocking content cuts. Disney's innocent family film was deemed too violent and disturbing for children in multiple countries, leading to extensive censorship battles. The United Kingdom's film board demanded cuts to the lawnmower chase sequence, calling it needlessly terrifying for young viewers. Germany banned the film entirely in several states due to concerns about the realistic insect attacks. Japan required digital alterations to reduce the intensity of Auntie's death scene after child psychologists deemed it traumatic. France censored the sprinkler sequence, arguing that the drowning imagery was too graphic. Even Disney's own international divisions pushed back against the content, with Disney Europe executives calling the film darker than our brand should allow. The studio spent over $2 million on international re-edits, creating dozens of different versions to satisfy global censorship demands. Number 11. The child stars' lives were destroyed by success. While Disney celebrated the film's success, the young actors' lives fell apart in ways the studio desperately tried to hide. Robert Oliveri, who played Nick, became so associated with the role that he couldn't get other parts, leading to depression and eventual withdrawal from Hollywood. Amy O'Neill faced constant typecasting and struggled with anxiety disorders that she later linked to the intense pressure during filming. Thomas Wilson Brown's family was torn apart by stage-parent conflicts over his earnings and career management. Jared Rushton dealt with substance abuse issues that began during the film's promotional tour. Disney provided minimal support as these children struggled, focusing instead on protecting the film's wholesome image. 3 of the 4 main child actors required therapy or rehabilitation within 5 years of the film's release, a pattern Disney worked hard to keep out of the press. Number 10. Crew members suffered long-term health problems. The experimental nature of the production left lasting damage on the people who made it possible. Set designers who worked with the oversized foam props developed chronic respiratory issues from inhaling toxic particles. Camera operators suffered eye damage from the intense lighting required for the miniature effects. Sound technicians experienced hearing loss from the amplified insect noises and mechanical equipment. The special effects team had the highest injury rate of any Disney production up to that point, with workers suffering chemical burns, crushing injuries, and repetitive stress disorders. Disney's insurance claims from the production were so extensive that the studio's premiums increased dramatically for future films. Many crew members never worked on another Disney project, with some attributing their exclusion to their workers' compensation claims and medical issues stemming from the production. Number 9. Test audiences hated the original ending. Disney's first cut of the film ended very differently, and test audiences absolutely despised it. In the original version, Wayne Szalinski's invention was destroyed and couldn't be rebuilt, leaving audiences with the disturbing implication that similar accidents could happen to any family. Focus groups called this ending depressing and anxiety-inducing. Parents worried the film would make children afraid of their own parents' hobbies and inventions. The studio spent months and over $3 million reshooting the ending to make it more upbeat and reassuring. Even then, early audiences found the shrinking concept so disturbing that Disney added extra comedy beats and removed several suspenseful moments to lighten the tone. The final version audiences saw was the product of extensive damage control designed to mask the darker themes that originally drove the story. Number 8. Disney covered up multiple on-set accidents. The studio's legal department worked overtime to suppress reports of serious accidents during production. Beyond the hospitalized actors, there were equipment failures that nearly killed stunt performers and crew members. A mechanical failure in the giant B-rig sent a stuntman crashing into concrete barriers, requiring emergency surgery. Electrical problems with the shrinking effect machinery caused fires that evacuated the set twice. The oversized props repeatedly malfunctioned, with the Lego blocks crushing equipment and nearly injuring children. Disney's crisis management team implemented a strict information blackout, requiring all cast and crew to sign extensive non-disclosure agreements. Studio executives feared that reports of on-set dangers would destroy the film's family-friendly image and potentially trigger investigations that could shut down production. The cover-up was so extensive that most details didn't emerge until decades later. Number 7. The film's success ruined the director's career. Joe Johnston should have been celebrating the biggest hit of his directing career, but success became his creative prison. Disney executives were so pleased with his ability to manage the chaotic production that they refused to let him pursue other projects. The studio locked him into a restrictive deal that demanded he direct only similar family-friendly effects films. Johnston wanted to explore darker, more serious material, but Disney threatened legal action if he violated his contract. His subsequent films, including The Rocketeer and later projects, were heavily micromanaged by executives who wanted to replicate the "Honey, I Shrunk the Kids" formula. Johnston later described the experience as career suicide disguised as success, explaining how the film's popularity trapped him in a creative box he couldn't escape. His relationship with Disney became so toxic that he eventually walked away from major studio filmmaking entirely. Number 6. The sequels were disasters that Disney tried to forget. Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, and Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves weren't just bad movies. They were expensive failures that nearly ended Disney's live-action ambitions. The second film's budget ballooned to over $50 million due to the same production problems that plagued the original, but without the novelty factor to drive ticket sales. Test audiences were brutal in their criticism, calling the sequel boring and unnecessary. The third film was even worse, with direct-to-video quality that embarrassed Disney executives. Rick Moranis publicly expressed regret about the sequels, saying they cheapened the original and exploited children's nostalgia. The failures were so spectacular that Disney buried the films in limited releases and minimal marketing, hoping audiences would forget they existed. Studio executives later used the sequels as examples of how not to develop franchise properties. Number 5. Rick Moranis was nearly replaced mid-production. Despite being Disney's 7th choice for the role, Moranis almost lost the part halfway through filming due to creative differences with studio executives. Disney bosses worried that his naturally quirky personality was making Wayne Szalinski too eccentric and potentially unlikable. Studio heads demanded he tone down his performance, leading to heated arguments about character interpretation. The conflicts became so intense that Disney secretly approached other actors about taking over the role, including John Candy and Eugene Levy. Moranis threatened to walk off the project, which would have been catastrophic given how much footage had already been shot. The standoff lasted weeks, with lawyers and agents negotiating behind the scenes while production ground to a halt. Only intervention from director Joe Johnston, who defended Moranis' vision, saved the actor's career-defining performance. Number 4. The special effects team suffered mental health crisis. The pressure to create groundbreaking effects on an impossible timeline pushed the visual effects team to their breaking point. Lead effects supervisor David Allen suffered a nervous breakdown mid-production and had to be hospitalized for exhaustion and stress-related disorders. Multiple team members required psychological counseling as the demands of creating convincing miniature worlds proved overwhelming. The effects department had the highest turnover rate of any Disney production, with skilled technicians quitting almost daily due to impossible deadlines and perfectionist demands. Disney brought in crisis counselors and increased mental health benefits, but the damage was extensive. Several effects artists never worked on major films again, with their Disney experience leaving them too traumatized to handle high-pressure productions. The studio's internal reports described the effects team's working conditions as inhumane and unsustainable. Number 3. Hidden adult content. That somehow made it past censors buried within Disney's family film were adult jokes and references so subtle that they went unnoticed for years. The shrinking process itself contained scientific innuendos that flew over children's heads, but amused adult viewers. Several prop design choices included hidden inappropriate imagery that wasn't discovered until the film was analyzed frame by frame years later. The script originally contained even more adult content that was removed during production, but traces remained in background elements and character interactions. Disney's own censors missed references that international ratings boards later flagged, leading to awkward explanations and emergency edits for home video releases. The hidden content became internet folklore, with fans discovering new inappropriate elements decades after the film's release. Number 2. The film nearly caused Disney to abandon live action forever. The production was such a nightmare that Disney executives seriously considered ending their live-action film division entirely. The budget overruns, safety violations, and production delays made Honey, I Shrunk the Kids a cautionary tale that terrified studio bosses. Internal memos reveal that Disney came within days of shutting down live-action production and focusing exclusively on animation. Only the film's unexpected box office success saved the division, but the trauma of the production left lasting scars on Disney's corporate culture. Future live-action projects were subjected to much stricter oversight and safety protocols directly because of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids disasters. Studio executives later admitted that if the film had failed financially, Disney might never have made another live-action family film. Number 1. The Dark Truth. Disney never wanted you to know. The most shocking secret isn't about the production chaos, the injured actors, or the budget disasters. It's about what Disney knew from the beginning and chose to ignore. Internal documents reveal that studio executives were fully aware of the safety risks, the psychological impact on children, and the potential for lasting trauma, but proceeded anyway because market research showed the film could be extremely profitable. Disney prioritized box office success over the well-being of children, both those acting in the film and those who would watch it. The studio had detailed reports about the dangers, but calculated that the financial rewards outweighed the human costs. This wasn't incompetence or oversight. It was a deliberate decision to put profits before people, hidden behind the wholesome Disney brand that parents trusted. The innocent family movie you remember was actually built on a foundation of corporate cynicism, covered up dangers, and destroyed lives. Disney's greatest live-action success came at a cost the studio never wanted you to discover. Sometimes the biggest lies are hidden behind the brightest smiles, and the most beloved childhood memories are built on the darkest industry secrets. But this is just the beginning. Every beloved movie from your childhood has secrets buried deeper than you could imagine. The studios don't want you digging into their past, but that's exactly what we're going to do. If these shocking revelations about Disney's cover-ups and industry lies opened your eyes, then you need to subscribe right now, because what I'm about to expose next will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about Hollywood. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because next week I'm revealing the disturbing truth behind another childhood classic that will make this Disney disaster look like child's play. The executives tried to bury these stories, but we're bringing them to light. And trust me, once you see what really happened behind the scenes of your favorite films, you'll never watch them the same way again. Drop a comment and tell me which childhood movie you want me to investigate next, because the deeper we dig, the darker it gets. And I guarantee the secrets we uncover will shock you to your core. The truth has been hidden for decades, but together, we're going to expose it all. Subscribe now and join the investigation that Hollywood desperately doesn't want you to see.